Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to a screencast on Chapter 6 review. We're going to take a look at as many of these problems on Chapter 6 review as is possible. In number 1, we have x plus 5 is greater than negative 7. Is there anybody in my third hour who wants to volunteer on how to solve this? Okay, we do need to subtract 5, as this student is saying. So if I subtract 5 over here, I also have to subtract 5 on the other side. So when we subtract 5 over here, this equals 0, so it's canceled. That leaves what? X to be greater than negative 7 minus 5. That's like owing $7 and owing another person $5. How much do we owe total? Negative 12. By looking at our sign, we should be able to identify what type of circle we need on negative 12. What type of circle is that? Open circle. And we know that because it cannot be 12. What also can it be? Anything bigger than 12. So we need to shade to which direction? Right. To the right. And here's the shade. Just like that. Make sure you have that on your paper before we move to the next section. Now that I've given you a problem from that first section, it should be pretty easy. You need to use opposite operations throughout. So you're going to solve all those by opposite operations. When it said add, you subtracted. When this one says subtract, you're going to add. It makes that much sense. So you should figure out 2 and 3. Let's jump down to the next section. Solving inequalities using multiplication and division. Once again, this is going to take opposite operations. When I look at number 4, what is the operation taking place with my variable? Anybody have it? Division. Division. So in order to get rid of this division, I must multiply. Times 2 over here, times 2 on the other side. That will cancel these, which leaves what?
P is less than equal to 10.
P is less than or equal to positive 10. What type of circle goes on this number line?
Closed.
Closed. Why is it closed?
It's equal to or greater than, less than.
It's less than or equal to, so that means we shade to the left. So let's get out our highlighter, or I'll get out mine. You can just use your pencil. And we're going to shade to the left. Okay? I would like to jump over to number 6, because although all of these are going to use multiplication or division in this section, okay, or in this section here, 4, 5, 6, and 7, there is a special situation that happens when we move a negative number. So in number 6, negative 3 times x is greater than 27. How do I solve number 6? What is my only step? Divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. So when this cancels, what does that leave? X. And what is the result on the right side? 27 divided by negative 3.
Negative 9.
Negative 9. So when we move a negative term, does anybody recall what happens to this greater than sign? It flips, or it changes direction. So we need to change the direction of this sign because we moved a negative term by multiplication or division. Every time you move a negative term by multiplication or division, your sign must change directions. What type of circle goes on negative 9? Open. And we should be shading which direction? Why to the left? Because x is less than the negative 9. And we are representing for all situations of x. Moving on, let's go into multi-step inequalities. Because I'm doing multi-steps, I'll try and change my colors for each step. Might as well jump into the first one. In number 8, I have 2g plus 11 is less than 25. 2g plus 11 is less than 25. Anybody identify my first step? Minus 11. What I do to one side, I also do to the other. That allows that to cancel. So 2g is less than 25 minus 11? 14. At this point, I have my next step, so I'll do that in a different color, showing that we did 2 steps. How do I get rid of multiplying by 2? Divide by 2. What I do to one side, I do to the other. This will cancel those 2's, which leaves me with my variable. And my variable is going to be less than 14 divided by 2 makes 7. What type of circle goes on 7? Open. And we shade to the y to the left? Because my variable is less than. Let's look at number 12. Number 12 is a special situation. Okay? So when we get to number 12, on all these we should be following our steps to distribute, regroup, eliminate, add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay? The first step we're looking at in number 12 is what? Any idea? What's the first step to consider? Distribution. All right? So let's go ahead and distribute 8 times t and then 8 times negative 1. 8 times t is? 8t. 8 times negative 1? Negative 8. The rest of this is going to be greater than negative 8 plus 8t. My next step in line would be regroup. Can I combine these terms? Can I combine these terms? No, because one has a variable, the other doesn't. One has a variable, the other doesn't. No regrouping this time, but I do need to eliminate a variable. Does it matter which variable I eliminate here? Why? They're the same number. So let's just get rid of this one, 8t, and I'll subtract 8t over here. That will cancel this one, and it will cancel this one. Somebody tell me what I have remaining. Not just 8, but negative 8 is greater than negative 8. Is negative 8 greater than negative 8?
No.
No, it's not. So in other words, this is false. And when we have a false statement, does anybody recall what that... Let me ask it this way. What type of solution does this represent? No solution. This one has no solution. What must I do to my number line then? Nothing at all. It stays entirely blank. And that's number 12. Okay? You might add a reminder in 6.3. If you ever multiply or divide by a negative, your sign flips. And now we're going to go to compound inequalities. The word compound gives this away. What does compound mean? Anyone recall? It means 2 inequalities at once. And the student in the back said it means we got 2 of them. So we got 2 of them going on at once. We can have 2 situations happen here. Does anybody recall the first? What are the 2 types of situations we can have? I'll give you a hint. If you look at 17 and 18, you'll know the second situation.
Oh, and or.
We have an and situation, and we have an or situation. What is the difference in the two?
And shades in or shades away.
Good. And shades in between. Or shades away. And I hope you guys have more room to write than I do. But in general, that's what you need to know.
And or away what?
And shades in between or shades away. These two number lines should be going away from each other. These two number lines should be shading in the middle. Let's work on solving number 15 and see where we can get on number 15. I have one inequality sign here. I have one inequality sign here. Okay? And I have only about 4 minutes. So let's try and get through this one, and we may have to pause. 2x minus 5. Which goes first, the 5 or the 2? And how do I get rid of the 5?
Add.
Plus 5. What I do to one side, I also have to do to the others this time. Negative 6 plus 5. Negative 1 less than or equal to. This one is canceled now, so that leaves 2x to be less than negative 3 plus 5, positive 2. Since we're on a second step, let's go ahead and show that in a different color, which I'll show it in a different color. You obviously don't have to. How do I get rid of this 2? Divide. Divide. Negative 1/2 is just negative 1/2, or if you wanted to, you could call that negative 0.5. Negative 0.5, those are the same thing. X is remaining because those cancel, and that is less than 2 divided by 2 makes 1. What type of dot is going to go on the graph for negative 1/2? Closed dot. And that's between 0 and 1. Here's my closed dot. What type of dot goes on positive 1?
Open.
Open. And we don't have much graph space here, but there is my open on positive 1. Now, because this is an and situation, where does our shading go between my points? In between them, right? So the little bit that you have to shade is just going to be this little spot right here. And that's everything.